our Chapter 13 mini lecture, I chose to go over the second portion of the chapter about stress and health because as a nursing major myself, I think handling those two things and researching them and explaining them kind of go hand in hand, so I wanted to definitely take apart this section. So, stress and health. Stress is the events and stimuli that threaten us, how we assess them, and then our physiological reactions. Stressors are the events and stimuli that actually threaten us. Stress evaluation is the cognitive system that assesses events that threaten us. And then stress response is the physiological response of the body to the assessment of threat. So there's three dimensions kind of. There's stressors, stress evaluation, and then stress response. There's the release of hormones, which is the physiological response that we talked about. And then, honestly, as the text said, it kind of got more in depth about how we can handle stress and how we can deal with it, because honestly, it's not healthy for our body in any way. So one way that we can handle stress is by building a strong network and community of people around us, such as family, friends, loved ones or relatives of any kind, or anyone who might be important to you, and having them help you out with your stress. The physiology of the stress response is similar across all mammals. The general vocabulary, so the general adaptive syndrome is the system connecting stress and disease through a series of stages. Alarm reaction is the activation of the sympathetic nervous system, including a release of hormones as the initial response to stress. The adaptation stage is the return to normal following an alarm reaction. And then the exhaustion stage is the increased susceptibility to disease and possible death that follows prolonged or frequently repeated stress. In terms of those hormones that we talked about, one of them is cortisol, which is a hormone from the adrenal gland that's released in response to stress. The adrenal gland is an endocrine gland atop the kidney, which releases hormones in response to stress. So the adrenal gland releases cortisol. So like I said, there's stages of the general adaptive syndrome. The first stage is the alarm reaction, which we went over. Second stage is the adaptation stage. And then the third stage is the exhaustion stage. An alarm reaction is the activation of the sympathetic nervous system or in the autonomic nervous system, and then the release of hormones, which is cortisol from the adrenal gland, which we talked about before. So example in the book, we have parachuting. So military, they do parachuting, and initially when they're released, their stress levels go up and their testosterone levels go down, and eventually as they become less and less stressed, those levels go back up. So less dramatic real-life situations also evoke clear hormonal responses. So if something may seem less dramatic, you can still have those hormonal responses in your life. And not everyone's response to stress the same way. So we have stress immunization, which is the concept that mild stress early in life makes an individual better able to handle stress later in life. Research indicated early stress is only beneficial if the individual is comforted afterwards. So that might be hard to wrap your head around, but basically stress is good, or minimal stress is good early in life in order to make you used to it later in life, but that stress is only good if you are comforted afterwards. So what's interesting is that lack of maternal comfort or attention early in life is negative for adult stress response. So basically it changes expressions in the hormones. So basically if you have lack of maternal comfort or attention early in life, you're going to wind up later in life as an adult with more stress, and it's kind of a negative for that reason. And then epigenetic, it wasn't a vocab term, but it was mentioned in the text. Epigenetic regulation is the change in gene expression that persists long after the original stimulus is gone. And then lack of control and unpredictability make unpleasant events more stressful. So I think this is pretty common knowledge that if you don't have control over a situation or you don't know exactly what's going to happen, you can become more stressed than normal because you yourself aren't able to do anything about it. So often how stressed we are comes from how we perceive events. So something that may not be all that serious, we may perceive as serious, which ups our stress when it's not supposed to be stressful at all. Lack of control and unpredictability, our perception of events. People, for example, who are executives at their job or able to control a lot are much less stressed. So, for example, a boss was able to make decisions and change things on his or her own. They're able to have less stress in their lives. And then gastric ulcers are measures of stress. I think there's a bunch of TV shows. I remember one TV show I watched where someone was so stressed that they got themselves a gastric ulcer as they were in like high school. So they're measures of stress and can end up damaging in health for a lot of reasons. So that's why people go to the doctor for them. And that's it for the health and stress section of chapter 13.